What's up, grip sniffers? Today, I'm going to be reviewing Saga and ranking every Image comic that I own, excluding single issues that I have in my box of comics. So this is Saga, and if you don't know what it is, it's basically a story about these alien races of these two people from an alien race. And both of the people from their planet are at war with each other, but they end up falling in love and having a kid. That's basically what the story's about, and their struggles with that. And the government's trying to keep them under wraps because they're trying to keep the war going for some reason. I don't really quite remember. But I personally really liked the story, but as a Christian, like, having to see all these gay characters, normally whenever there's a gay character in something, I can tolerate it. Like, I don't care. But this is for adults. Like, there are sexual scenes in here, and some of them include gay people, and that just leaves a sick taste in my stomach. Buried under all of that, there is a really good story. That's why I read the whole thing. But I do have a few problems with it beyond that. My favorite character dies in a really avoidable way, which makes me not want to continue the series at all. But other than that, it has a lot of really cool sci-fi aspects of it, if you can look past the stuff that I mentioned. And there's a really good story about two star-crossed lovers overcoming adversity with, like, their crossbreed daughter. And yeah, that's my Saga review. I'd give it a 4 out of 10, but that's just because of how uncomfortable it made me. It would get a 5, but it just made me feel weird after I read the whole thing, and that's not cool. So, this is everything that we'll be ranking, plus Saga. First, let's start at the bottom. Saga is at the bottom, but not because I think it's bad, but for the reasons I stated earlier. Right above Saga is going to be Middle West. Now, I actually really liked Middle West, but it's just really not for me. Like, unlike with Saga, where I think there's things inherently wrong about it, there's nothing inherently wrong about Middle West. And it's just not for me. It's for a younger audience, and I can respect that it has its place, but it's still getting second last for me. Next is Crossover. Now, I don't take my ranking of Crossover too hard, because I just have this one trade paperback of Crossover, and I'm not continuing it because I didn't like it, but because I have a lot of series that I'm reading right now, and I don't want to just go around buying everything that I'm reading. So this is all of Crossover that I've read. But from what I did read, I liked it, but everything else here has so much more content that I've read that it's just going to have to go over Middle West. Next up, Spawn. Spawn is a great heaven and hell story about a mega edgelord who died and went to hell and sold his soul so he could come back and see his wife. Very sick story, sick setup, very dark, grisly, but in the cool, edgy 80s and 90s kind of way. And one thing though, it's a little slow. If you saw my Spawn review, then you'll know that that's my one critique with it. But other than that, this is getting the number 3 ranking. Number 2, Invincible. The comic book that got me into comics. This isn't number 1, but I have extremely fond memories of it. But it's not as good as Walking Dead, I'll tell you that. There's a reason why they made a show out of The Walking Dead first. Well, it came out first, but that's not the main reason. It's just not as good as The Walking Dead. It's a great superhero story. Invincible kind of reminds me of Spider-Man, character-wise. And he's just a kid learning to, how to deal with his life and stuff like that. And the intergalactic conflict with his father later on is really cool. There's really good world building for something that's an indie comic, Because you know how Marvel and DC have that connected universe? This is probably the best world building out of any independent comic that I've ever read. And finally, number 1, I kind of spoiled it in my Walking Dead review, but it's The Walking Dead. This is the best Image comic that I've ever read. And I only say that because of how captivating it is. I could not put it down after I started reading it. And I can't say that about anything else here. Like, everything else took me multiple sittings, except Middle West, but that's just because it's not as long as everything else. And Crossover, but that's really short. But this, over 1,000 pages, read it in one sitting, read all of them in one sitting. There's 4 volumes of these soft covers, read all of them in one sitting, except like the third one, but I had to leave to do something. Anyway, this is my Image comic ranking. Let me know if you agree or disagree. I actually do love reading the comments, so I don't really give a shit if you like, but interacting with my fan base is sick, so comment if you have any thoughts. So yeah.